The lowest suicide rate in Utah for sexual minorities, LGBTQ, is active Latter-day Saint. The active Latter-day Saint suicide rate is lower than the national average. So if this is a cult, sign me up. The caricature of our church leaders is that they're callous and careless and they don't care. I know from personal experience and from all this that you can see, that is absolutely not true. And I have to question the motives of the other side. Because again, why would they be standing on graves, doing all the things that we know perpetuate and worsen the problem when they talk about this?
We can be deeply loving, compassionate, empathetic to people without pushing an LGBT agenda.
The gospel of Jesus Christ does not package people by their orientation or by their race.
This is totally against the popular narrative. It gets better if you keep your covenants.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to Ward Radio. I am your host, Cardinellis. Today I'm joined not in the studio, but via the interwebs, via Zoom, by a superstar cast. We've got Timber Harward, who is just in the Jubilee Media video with me. We've got Jonah Barnes, the associate professor of all things apocryphal, and a new guest, Jeff Bennion, who is also part of Timber's group, Beacon SSA Outreach Ministries. I can't remember. You'll have to correct me once you start talking.
He's a friend of mine. He's actually predominantly with North Star.
I'll introduce myself here in a minute.
Yes.
Okay. So he's with North Star. These guys got some great resources for members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that are experiencing same-sex attraction, that are LGBTQIA, whatever euphemism, whatever acronym, whatever title you want to give it. These guys handle it, and they're awesome dudes, total friends of the show. And they came forward expressing some frustration with a lot of the anti-Mormon claims that gay members of the church are worse off, are unwelcome, and they instead say that they're actually very well adjusted and have a very high statistical success rate, higher than their non-member counterparts. And personally, I'm gonna let you guys talk here for a second, so I'll get it all out of my system in the intro. I gotta tell you, I come with a lot of baggage to this conversation because I'm sick and tired of my gay friends being told that they're hated in my church where they're not. And these anti-Mormons stand on the graves of the worst human misery out there, but the familial misery of a self-terminated person. And I'm using the euphemism for the YouTube algorithms, but they traffic in human misery and they stand on the graves of these people. And then they spout their anti-Mormon, anti-gay talking points saying Mormons hate gays, Mormons hate gays, so on and so forth. And it is the most vile and cruel type of anti-Mormonism out there. And it seems like no matter how many times you debunk them, they keep clinging to these bogus studies that come from echo chambers that hate us. So I was overjoyed when I heard that you guys were going to come on and we're going to debunk a lot of this crap that's floating out there in the ether that a lot of gay members of our faith are ultimately going to read someday, and are going to make them not just question their faith, but their family relationships, their friendships, and do them absolutely no service. So without any further ado, I turn the time over to you, my man. Timber, Jeff, whichever one of you guys wants to go first, just go.
Well, real quick, I didn't see the recording started. Is it started on your end?
Oh, yeah. We're recording on OBS, not Zoom, bro.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're
okay,
professionals. This ain't janky, bro.
Okay, so
this is high quality. I've heard that we can't afford the equipment Cardin's got in his studio.
Yeah, so hit it, man. Hit it.
Yeah. So Timber and I are old buddies. We did co-write. Have you plugged the resource guide we wrote, Timber? Timber did 85% of the work, but I'll claim some credit. We wrote a resource guide.
Maybe it's...
Yeah, with some steps for people to do to help, them stay faithful if they find themselves in a position where they might have same-sex attraction or those sort of things. We got a lot of how-tos in that guide. So yeah, here's if I sketch out the narrative, Cardin, I think you did a good job. So the story is the popular narrative is Latter-day Saints who are sexual minorities. That's my fancy word for identify as gay, experience same-sex attraction, right? There's the whole President Nelson, be careful how you label things. And there are some landmines there, which we could talk about some other time. So if you're in that sphere, the narrative then is you're lonely, you're miserable, you have just basically two really bad options. You can inauthentically marry a woman and be miserable and probably end up destroying your family and your marriage, or you can be miserable and single.
Which was literally almost an exact quote from our I believe that's what John DeLynn said in our Jubilee Media, or maybe a follow-up podcast. I've gleaned so much media in the past week, but yes, that's the very common narrative.
Was that the part where John DeLynn was berating Timber as if John had become the moderator and was touting his PhD in his bogus studies? Was that part?
He said the only options for gay men in the church are to be single and celibate, and the divorce rate is super high with people like me and Jeff who are married to women, and how it's basically just you're destined to fail is what he was saying.
Yeah. Do you love when people look at you and say, like, you're not an option? Thanks. Thanks a lot.
It's a little marginalizing. But there is this story, right? There's one authentic way to do it. It's only a matter of time. We're going to celebrate 20 years in July, my wife and I.
Hey, congrats.
But it's still only a matter of time, guys. My marriage is a ticking time bomb.
Oh,
and one of these days...
She hasn't figured out, bro. She hasn't figured out. She's in the dark, dog. You know?
We better nobody send her this YouTube. Nobody send it to her.
And your elders quorum doesn't know either. And the second they find out, you're probably not getting invited to the Super Bowl party, dog.
Darn it. No. So yeah, it's a narrative, and I don't want to be too judgy here, but is it Jesus or Satan that wants to limit our choices? Is it Jesus or Satan that wants to convince us there's no other way, right? And I'll also say I'm a co-founder of North Star International, the only fully supportive support organization for Latter-day Saints around this experience. That we fully support the brethren and the church doctrine and policy. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and of course, I've been dealing with this issue personally for about 30 years. And helping support groups and all kinds of things. So I've been around this issue a while. And so we'll also see in mental health this idea that when you're feeling depressed, when you're feeling really anxious, your choices do kind of constrict. You get this tunnel vision and you think, yeah, I can't do anything, right? If you've ever been in this point where you felt trapped and none of your choices look good, that is a dangerous and unfortunate place. But I think when we're in a more healthy and happy place, we will recognize that we've got a lot of options. There's a lot of ways we can craft our lives, that we have agency to be rather than be acted upon. And so we talk about the options and choices that people have. And so John DeLynn does have his study. It came out in 2014, and he reports various things. He claims that the divorce rate is 70 to 80% for what we call mixed orientation marriages. I hate that term. It makes me feel like I live in a zoo. Okay. Why is our orientation mixed? We're both attracted to men. Just kidding. Yeah.
Au contraire, we have the same orientation.
Right? It makes me feel like I live in a zoo, right? It makes me feel like I'm married. I'm just married, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, but that's what they're called. The literature calls us mixed orientation marriages. And so he says those marriages like mine and Timber's have a 70 to 80% divorce rate. Now, he actually used some statistical skullduggery to inflate the number. It's actually 50%, which isn't that much different than national averages. So There's some statistical legerdemain that he does there. That's our first problem. He also correlates some health problems. But the big problem is his sample. About 36% of his sample is excommunicated, because that was the term at the time, or no longer active Latter-day Saints. So already we've got a skewed sample here of people.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so that's problem A. Problem B is that it was a snowball sample. So about almost 50%, like something like 45% of the sample, and he got about 1,200. So it's a pretty good sample. It was certainly the largest sample, and he'll remind you of that repeatedly, that it was the largest sample that he did. But about 45% of the people found out about this survey from somebody they know. We call it a snowball sample.
Ah.
Like the telephone game. Oh, you do this. Oh, and then they'll tell their friends and they'll tell their friends.
So it'd be the same as if I did a study in the BYU Archaeology department where I told a bunch of people, 100 people, let's say, dude, we're going to do a survey that's a scientific survey on whether or not you think the Lamanites and the Nephites were really in Guatemala based off archaeological discoveries there. And they tell all of their friends in the archaeology department, who tell all of their TAs, who tell all of their students. And next thing you know, I got 1,000 100% believers in the Book of Mormon being polled whether or not they think the Book of Mormon happened in Guatemala. And I'm oh so surprised to find out that 75% of them are pretty sure it's Guatemala, and the 25% holdouts are Heartlanders who are afraid to go home to their parents during Thanksgiving and admit that they didn't say Mesoamerica, you know? So is that kind of what you're suggesting his study was?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
He found the convenient sample. So, and there's a lot of indicators in the study that show it's not very representative. But this study still gets a lot of traction. The Imagine Dragons guy, Dan Reynolds, always talks about it. And again, it delegitimizes my experience, right? It doesn't reflect my experience. A lot of us didn't participate in it because we read the study, and there's questions like, oh, if you did therapy to help you manage your same-sex attraction, was it not effective or extremely harmful? And effective versus harmful.
Both bad options.
It's effective or ineffective, or helpful or harmful. So
when you stopped beating your wife, did you begin verbally assaulting her, or did you simply lock her outside in the rain? You know what I'm saying? It's like, all right.
So I did get a link to this survey, and I clicked on. It was like a Google Survey Monkey type thing, you know.
Okay.
And I got a few questions, and I'm just like, I can't fit myself in one of these boxes. It's just so non-inclusive.
He didn't want you to fit in that box. He built the box for a certain type of person, and he didn't want you to fit in that box. He wanted what he wanted. Yeah. Yeah.
So, but that gets all the fame and fortune. And my friend Ty Mansfield again, and a guy named Christopher Rosick actually wrote up a critique of Dillon's study and submitted it to the same journal that Mr. Dillon published his in. And they said, well, there's always problems with studies, so we're not going to publish your critique. So,
dude, you guys are going harder in the paint against John Dillon than I am. What's going on here? Usually it's good cop, bad cop, and I'm the bad cop. This is crazy. Keep going.
So you're saying that they tried to post a rebuttal to this study, but it was just rejected by the publisher. Because it didn't go with their narrative.
Because all studies have problems.
Okay. Wow. But we're only going to not publish yours. Right. They all have problems, but we're rejecting you.
Okay, well, what's the real data? What's the real data about?
Then what they did, and here's how you want to do real research if you really want to know the answer, is you get ideological diversity. So Ty, along with Christopher, again, that same guy, and a guy named Tyler Lefevre, Lee Beckstead, a bunch of people across the ideological spectrum got together and constructed a survey that fit each people's experience so they could describe themselves. Like, if you ask me if I'm gay, I might say yes, I might say no. That label doesn't really resonate with me. I'm not afraid of it. If you want to call me that, it won't offend me, but it doesn't fit, you know? So check your box. Are you gay, bisexual, or other, right? I might say other, I might say, right? So if you get an ideologically diverse research team, you can construct a research instrument.
Hold on, Jeff. Can I say Tyler Lefevre, who Ty Mansfield paired with, is a open gay ex-Mormon who's married to a long-term
relationship or something.
So he paired with him so that they could reach it. Yeah.
Right. So this is a bipartisan thing. And so that's great. And then we just sprayed that survey out to everybody. And John Dillon can't claim anymore it's the largest survey, because I think we got 300 or 400 more samples than he did.
Boom shakalaka.
Yeah. Boom.
Did you just say boom shakalaka?
Take that, Delin.
So I don't know, Cardin, if you have those PowerPoints I sent you,
Sure.
you just open that first slide. This is kind of the bottom line. And then we'll go into the suicide thing.
Okay, so which one, you sent me 7 links. Which one is it?
Oh,
man?
it's the PowerPoint for the first. Did you get that? That was a different email.
So here you go, my man. Single relationship status, satisfaction. Wow, this is like a whole legit deal, man. Okay.
So here we go. Here's the real story. Is it, again, one of the headlines is it's worse than lupus, being single and celibate. So you'll see that's the first column here, single celibate, single not celibate. That's the party on the weekends, guys.
Okay.
Then you've got the mixed orientation relationship. That's being timbers marriages like ours. And then if you're in a same-sex relationship. So what the 4 options survey found is there's a way to do all of these life paths and be happy. In fact, you will see most of the people are above neutral. And so what they did on the pie charts on the right is they combined all the satisfieds into green, sort of the neutrals into gray, or I guess that's slate color. And then brown is not satisfied. They're dissatisfied. So we know in general, married people are more satisfied than single people. That's true no matter who you are, no matter what kind of sexual preference orientation you have. That's going to be the story there. So this isn't surprising that you see more satisfaction from people in relationships. But what's interesting is, do you see much difference between the single celibate and the single not celibate?
What is it?
Actually, if you're celibate, you're a little more happy, or a little less unhappy anyway. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I see. All right.
And we think, I think the reason for this is that if you're single and not celibate, you probably are having multiple relationships, and breakups are tough, right? So again, no matter what your orientation is, breakups are hard. And so my theory is the single celibate people are less dissatisfied, more neutral or happy than the not celibates, because they're not in and out of relationships. So,
okay, wow.
Right. But anyway, there's not a big difference. So this narrative that you're miserable and single in the church, well, it looks like your choice is miserable in the church, or a little more miserable out of the church.
Wow.
Yeah. And miserable doesn't put it fair. It's neutral to satisfied. So that is, again, a broader sample, a larger sample than Delin's study, and it does not show a big difference. It shows a little more satisfaction if you're single and celibate. Okay, and then if you look at and then the second 2 columns, the MOR and the SSR, the mixed orientation relationship and the same-sex relationship. Now, here's an interesting thing too. So in the mixed orientation relationship, if you will see there is a little more dissatisfaction with the mixed orientation. It's it's going to be slightly dissatisfied and very dissatisfied. You total all those up, you get about 16%. Now, are any of you guys fathers?
Yeah, I am.
Yes.
All of us. Yeah.
All right. One of the things we know, again, from the social science research in marriage is each time you have a kid, your marital satisfaction goes down.
Is that true?
Really?
That is true. Well established. Each kid docks your marital satisfaction more.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I look at Jonah Barnes with his 6 kids. He's like the happiest guy I freaking know.
It's worth it, right? Because there's other things in a marriage than just pure satisfaction, right? If you're running to Glee Club and soccer and it's stressful.
Well, because that would be the difference between stress and satisfaction. Because like running this podcast, running this radio show, running all of the social media accounts, this is one of the most stressful things I've ever done in my life. Okay. But it's also one of the most satisfying. So how do I answer that question about am I stressed out or am I satisfied? I'm extremely satisfied, but I'm extremely stressed out. So like, how do you answer that?
Yeah. And I don't know how people answer it, but we just know we have ways to measure marital satisfaction. Sadly, we didn't give them the RDAS to tell us in this study, because there's clinically validated measures for marital satisfaction. I use it in my practice, but here this is self-report, right? Are you satisfied in your marriage? Okay. Here's the other thing that's interesting, Cardin, is look, we don't have it in this thing, but the average duration of the same-sex relationship was about 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
The average duration of the mixed orientation relationship was 15 years. So again,
wait. So you're saying statistically, LDS, quote, mixed orientation marriages, which you admit is a really horrible term because it sounds like people are in a zoo, but you're saying that, quote, mixed orientation marriages have more than double the success rate in the LDS church?
that's one way to read the data. Yeah, in other
There's
words,
greater fidelity. There's greater fidelity.
There's twice.
Whoa.
So in other words, if you're a single guy, right? If you're a sexual minority, you have same-sex attraction. You're like, should I date a man, date a woman? What this data seems to suggest is your chances are twice as good with a woman. Now, you shouldn't play the odds, right? That's no way to go into a relationship. That's no way to go.
That's true.
But this is totally against the narrative, the popular narrative, right?
It dispels that notion. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What about this rate amongst gay youth that they keep standing on the graves of these people?
Yes, let's go to that.
Blaming their parents
let's
for being
just
Mormon.
tie a bow in. Let's tie a bow in this, and we'll go to that.
Okay.
The bow is if you have twice the duration. You have all this, you have kids usually you're more likely to have kids if you're heterosexually married. It's a lot easier to create kids.
Yeah.
But
isn't that wild?
little easier,
a little easier. And then twice, at least in our sample, twice the duration of things. And now Delin, what he does is he compares mixed orientation relationships to straight relationships. Or regular heterosexual marriages. Is that really what we should be comparing? Well, that isn't an option for Timber and I. Unless we get the magic wand and we turn straight, which is the caricature of what they're saying we're saying, and that's not what we're saying. But unless the thing you have to compare a relationship like mine with is a same-sex relationship, right?
Is your other option?
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where they're saying we'll be happier.
Yeah.
And so they're saying we'll be happier there, but do those relationships last longer? Are they more satisfactory? Well, they might be a little more satisfactory, but there's still plenty of us, according to this survey, more than 85% of us who are still very satisfied, and we've lasted twice as long.
And the satisfactory differential could be due to children.
Kids, or we do know a relationship duration. Sometimes the spark wears off, right? We talk about the honeymoon period of marriage where that's really intense and exciting. But
that happens with any marriage.
Yeah,
that happens with any marriage.
And
the reason
go ahead,
honestly, the reason I think it lasts so much longer, there's higher satisfaction in same-sex marriages is because they have more open relationships. Let's just be honest. Being an ex-gay person myself, coming from that lifestyles are so much open. People are just having a lot more sex, and so they see that as satisfied. And most of these marriages there's no fidelity. They're open relationships. They're sleeping around, having threesomes and stuff. I'm just being open. That's the reality. So
as everybody here knows who's married to a woman, the first time you share a bathroom with a woman and you get her hair tangled up in your toothbrush, your marital satisfaction plummets. Am I right?
Yes.
Am I right?
Timber's had a lot more wild times than I have, so I can't comment about that. And this study didn't measure fidelity; it just measured satisfaction. But you do hear that claim. And my grandma used to say, "You just put a man and a woman together. You've seen the Seinfeld. You're asking for trouble." We know the equipment. You're familiar with that. There are some aspects that are a little more familiar and easy if you're in the same sex, for sure. So, okay. So let's talk about, first of all, if any of your listeners want to go and learn about how to responsibly talk about, you can go to a website called reportingonsuicide.org. And this is what they say to not do. Provide sensational details of a headline or story. Oversimplify or speculate on the reason for present it as a common or acceptable response to hardship. Glamorize or romanticize. overstate the problem by using descriptors like epidemic or skyrocketing. So if these people are sincere and they legitimately want to reduce suicide, they would not be talking about it the way they are, which according to all suicide authorities is exactly the wrong way to talk about suicide. And the way they talk about it is making the problem worse. And so what you said, Cardin, they're standing on the graves. They're standing on the graves and digging more graves by the irresponsible and inflammatory way they talk about this.
What you just described, I just immediately heard every time John Dehlin talks about this.
Yes.
Just like he's going down the list of making the problem worse.
He should know better.
Wow.
This is well understood
one of the things he said in our Jubilee episode is that all this LGBT youth suicides in the church are greater than the combined suicides from all other cults. And it's just, that is incredible to me that he could even make that claim. And I don't know. It's just, it's absurd to me.
Yeah,
well,
I don't know what.
Well, let's talk the stats. No,
yeah.
I mean, look, we're 20 minutes into this, and we've gone over some really cool pie charts and bar graphs and talked about why people may be satisfied or more satisfied. And we've gotten some really interesting stats on, happiness and the length of the marriage and so on and so forth. But let's dive right into the studies. Like Jacob Hansen, for example, has sent me 4 studies. The day of the actual debate, he sent me links to 4 studies that showed that LDS youth are so better well-adjusted that they have half the suicide ideation as their secular counterparts, right? And that gay kids, though they do have higher suicide ideation, it's like 1/4 or something along those lines what their secular counterparts have. So if you're trying to secularize these people and take them out of the church, you're literally sending them to a 4 times more likelihood of having these types of ideas in their head. So what's the stats you've come across? Yes. What are the studies so you can cite them so that our audience can go and read them and not just take your word for it?
Mm-hmm. So already, let me set the stage here by saying already we should be skeptical of John Dehlin's claim, because in general, we know from hundreds, if not thousands of studies that in general, religious practice and religious belief are protective. They improve your mental health and they improve your physical health. This is well-established, replicated research that we already know. So already we should be skeptical of that claim that are LGBTQ people the exception to that rule, or is it part of it? Now, obviously, I don't want to diminish anybody's individual experience here. Yes, there are sexual minorities, LGBTQ identified people who do have problems in the church, who do experience isolation, shame, fear, litigation. All those things are happening. I am not got my rose-colored glasses on here and say everything's great. Any is a tragedy for any reason. Mm-hmm. And we need to do everything we can to reduce that. And we could start by talking about it responsibly, unlike our opponents here. But anyway, so let's go into the research. So what we find is, now necessarily, Cardin, this has to be a Utah story. So we have to say, does the story we have in Utah follow everywhere in the world or everywhere in the United States? Because we do see regional patterns. It's more common in the West. Alaska is particularly high. Nevada is pretty high. And so Utah's already in that zone, Rocky Mountain zone, where they're elevated. Some people think it's elevation. Like there's an interesting study that says antidepressants don't work above 4,000 feet as well, certain ones. Weird. Anyway, there's all kinds of theories. Nobody really knows, but certain states already have elevated suicide levels, and Utah is one of them. And but Utah's also done some really good surveillance, or that's a fancy epidemiological word for we follow in Utah. I live in Salt Lake City. We follow every single. We go and track and look at the factors and see whatever we can discover about this, because we don't want people killing themselves. But what we find is that it is, you can put a line chart on the rate from low to high, from active Latter-day Saint gay identified individuals, non-active Latter-day Saint gay identified individuals, and non-members. And it is about double from active Latter-day Saints to non-members. And the inactive members are right there in the middle. So if you want to reduce your suicidality, you should go to church. And you should be involved in your community. And
sorry, Jeff, just so that I understand. So you're saying you can draw a line. Say that one more time. So the activity.
If we do look at the suicide rates for active Latter-day Saints, as far as we can tell, the church is cooperating with the state of Utah epidemiologists, and that we've got a guy in charge of it. And he wrote a great article, and he's got some peer-reviewed studies as well, where, you can't always determine somebody's sexual orientation, right? People aren't necessarily open, especially the younger you are. But where we have been able to identify that, then they work with the church and identify if they're a member or not. And then they see if they can interview their family and see what their level of activity was. And the lowest suicide rate in Utah for sexual minorities, LGBTQ, is active Latter-day Saint.
Wow.
The highest suicide rate, and in fact, it's lower than the background. Remember I said Utah suicide rates are elevated? The active Latter-day Saint suicide rate is lower than the national average, whereas Utah as a whole is higher. If you just took the active Latter-day Saints, we'd be one of the best in the country for low suicide rates. So being a member, even if you're not active, is more protective than being a non-member. So if this is a cult, sign me up. We're preventing suicides.
Wow.
Best cult ever.
Yeah.
So what percent, if we were just to put this into a simple fraction, would you say, if you could stare down the barrel of the camera and just say, if you're a gay youth in America, would you say your chance of not having these terrible thoughts of self-deletion are 4 times better if you're an active member of the church, 3 times better, 2 times better? Put it in one sentence. Put it in one sentence.
Your risk is cut in half.
Wow.
So if you're an active gay Latter-day Saint, your risk of thoughts of self-deletion are cut by half.
Yes.
Wow.
And it's still elevated. It's still above, the average youth person. But the interesting question then is, if religion itself is so oppressive and harmful, shouldn't that line slope I sketched out be the opposite? The further you get away from religion, the more, the less suicidality you should have. And in fact, it's exactly the opposite. And as I say, that tracks with everything else we know about religion and its role in people's lives, because that is true for non-sexual minorities. And now we know in the studies that we've done in Utah with the surveillance that we do here, that it's also true.
Well, can you name these studies so people can go look them up?
Yes. So there's a study in Taylor and Francis called "Same-Sex Attracted: The Association of Sexual Identity Labeling on Religiousness, Sexuality, and Health Among Mormons," and that shows those who don't identify as gay but still experience have same-sex attraction, like Timber and I describe ourselves, they do better. So that's a study that just came out in 2019 from the Tyler Lefevre and Christopher Rosick. Stephen Cranny, you may know him, he's a well-known scholar, and he finds that Mormon LGBs, he used a large population, and they have much better mental health on self-rated mental health than non-Mormon Latter-day Saints. Then there's Justin Dyer and Michael Goodman, who are at BYU Religious Studies Center, and they are the experts in LGBT suicide in general. And they're both they've written some articles in the Deseret News you can find. But being a Latter-day Saint is positively related to protective factors we already know, coming from 2-parent homes, feeling safe at school, less likely to use drugs and alcohol. The word of wisdom, not keeping the word of wisdom, is highly correlated with suicidality already. So what we found is, so that's considering suicide, thankfully not completed suicide. There were, in general, the national average is 52%. Which is terrible, right? That's
horrible.
LGB youth, where there's suicidal ideation. And what we find is, so that's the average for LGB, which again is tragic. It's heartbreaking. It makes that I get no joy in that. If we want to say, then if you want to break out at the, sorry, I gave you the wrong stat. That is for people who have no religion. And so then if you look at the suicide attempts, we find that, again, there's 20% who attempt suicide, according to the CDC. And what we found was if you're a Latter-day Saint, you're at 9%.
Wow.
And if you have other or no religion, you're 23 to 17%. So again, like I was saying, about half. Your risk of attempting suicide is cut in half by being a Latter-day Saint.
No, but it's
and
less
Latter-day Saint has the strongest association of, they also measured in this BYU Studies article, they looked at Protestants, Catholics, others, and nuns. And of all those, Latter-day Saints have the lowest suicide rate.
And I think it also, one thing that you mentioned, this is, first of all, my mind is being blown. This is amazing. It feels so good to actually hear the truth. But so thank you. But one thing that you touched on that was just so fast is that the church is cooperating with the surveillance studies in Utah, trying to help these kids, trying to help people.
Yes, this is too high. This number is too high.
Yes.
It is.
And
it's
the church is right there trying to help, trying to do anything it can to help this, which is so, you'll never hear this from Dr. DeLynn.
Right.
The church is interested in helping these people. We love all of God's children, and the church is doing the small part that it can do to help with this type of research. I think it's very significant.
Yeah. There's real concern, real care. The caricature of our church leaders is that they're callous and careless and they don't care. I know from personal experience and from all this that you can see, that is absolutely not true. And I have to question the motives of the other side, because again, why would they be standing on graves doing all the things that we know perpetuate and worsen the problem when they talk about this?
Okay, so here's my question then, because I'll have to play devil's advocate here, all right? Because I definitely know where you stand and where Jonah Barnes stands, and apparently with Timber Hardware where he stands against some of our competition in this arena of thought, right? But in all of your studies, you've been able to debunk a lot of the narratives that, LDS gay youth are not safe at church. And you've been able to prove through both the data and numbers and statistics that this is actually the best place for them, not the worst. It's actually
not
the
that
best
there are
place.
Problems and that we need to fix. But statistically speaking, it's the best place.
Okay.
Not the perfect place, but it's the best place.
Yes, I get that. Now, the most successful lies, we know anti-Mormons are really good at twisting our words and at trying to make it look like we said something that we didn't, or that scripture means something that it didn't. Satan's best when he twists half-truths instead of just making up fallacies, right? Are you saying that the narrative that gay Latter-day Saints are not safe at church and that religion is harmful to them is an absolute fallacy? Or is there a grain of truth of something in our process or our culture or our doctrine that actually does need improvement and that we need to fix, so that anti-Mormons can't keep twisting this and making gay kids in our church feel unwelcome, and B, so we actually improve this system, and actually B should come first. We should care about improving the system before we care what anti-Mormons think, because they'll never change their mind and ever be satisfied.
We'll
at the
never
end of
make
the day,
them satisfied.
it's more about our members than it is about our reputation. But so is there any grain of truth to these anti-Mormon accusations that you've discovered both as a researcher and as a marriage and family therapist who actually got his license in the state of Utah?
Good point. Yeah, there is. And I mean, I'm sure there's people who lie or exaggerate about their experience, but I think a lot of the anecdotes that we hear are probably true, right? There are families throwing their kids out when they come out. Latter-day Saint families who are otherwise active. I mean, we've got this whole Jody Hillebrand scandal here that's just embarrassing. There's wackadoodle therapists There are people.
Names. I want names. I want wackadoodle therapist names. No, I'm just kidding. Keep going.
And there were people who were shocked, right? Who had the shock therapy. That stuff happened. But it does seem to get overblown and create the dominant narrative when it appears that's more the minority narrative. Does that make sense? So I'm not denying those things happen. They do. And if any time and there's priesthood leaders that don't react well. And there's families who don't react well. And there's kids who get, like, I have a colleague who's actually a fellow therapist. And this is maybe the worst thing. Again, I'm going to point the finger mostly at the narrative. So I have a therapist. He knows about me. He's been wonderful to me. He's supportive. He's a great man. I admire him. He's got 3 or 4 kids. His daughter came out as maybe I think I'm lesbian. She was 14 when she does this. He's a good Latter-day Saint, but also a wonderful guy. And she's like, I'm coming out and I know I need to pack my bags and you're going to throw me out of the house now. And I'm like, who told you would get thrown out of the house when you came out?
Delin!
Was it my colleague, the dad? He's like, no, we never said any of that. We've always tried to talk respectfully. So where does this narrative get created that if a 14-year-old comes out, he's going to get thrown out, which is tragic. That's terrible. And they, of course, did the opposite. They just embraced her and loved her and listened to her. And when we're connected, that's one of the reasons why religion is so protective, is because we're connected. It provides this instant connection. Usually you go to church, you have ministering brothers and sisters, you have all this happening, and connection with other people is what is so protective of this. And one of the hallmarks of suicide, let me give you this word. This is important. You can check for this if you're worried about your friends. Perceived burdensomeness and thwarted belongingness. So people who get suicidal ideation have this. They perceive themselves to be a burden, right? The world would be better off without me. Well, lie, but that's what they think, right? And thwarted belongingness. I'm trying to connect. I'm trying to reach out, and I don't know how. I don't have the wherewithal, or I've been bullied, or I feel like I've been bullied. It doesn't matter. Sometimes our perceptions get warped. So if we can unthwart that belongingness and help people perceive that they're not, in fact, a burden, but a blessing and a gift, that's what we got to do.
Well, that's the number one thing that all these anti-Mormon lies do is what's the scientific word phrase you gave it? Thwarting belongingness.
Thwarted belongingness and perceived burdensomeness.
And perceived burdensomeness. So that the number one thing that all of these anti-Mormon narratives about LGBTQ youth suicide, LGBTQ youth activity, lovingness, the whole 9 yards, is it thwarts that belongingness, making them feel like they're not welcome. When in reality, all of us in church are like, yeah, dude, you're totally welcome. By the way, welcome to the, you're gay party. We saw it years ago, pal. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then second off, burdensomeness, bro, like,
we don't want you, right? The church doesn't want you.
Like, please, you are a child of God whose soul has an infinite worth. Infinite
worth, right?
Yes.
We don't have the nihilistic viewpoint that when you die, it's over. We know that we are beings of eternal beings having a temporal experience of infinite worth. And because we have that ideology, again, I wonder if that's why Latter-day Saints do the best, because our ideology, our theology, perhaps more than any other religion, talks about the precious, almost godlike, right? We're gods in embryo. This idea that we are quasi-divine, that idea that our souls and our bodies are precious, that ought to be protective. And I hope it is. And again, I weep and it breaks me up that anybody would think that we'd be better off without them.
Okay,
right?
I think it's good to emphasize for anybody who might be listening to this or whatever, that the gospel of Jesus Christ does not package people by their orientation or by their race, by their profession, by their age, by their nationality, or whatever. In the eyes of God, you're not gay or straight or white or black or whatever. You are his child. He knows your name. He knows your name. You're an individual, and that individual is of infinite worth. You're not just a sum of categories or something.
With Jesus Christ, who underwent an infinite atonement for you.
For you individually.
Yes.
When they appeared to Joseph Smith in the first vision, the first thing that was spoken to Joseph was his name. They knew who he was. They knew him individually. He wasn't a white boy or a New Yorker or gay or straight or anything. He was Joseph.
Yep.
Their personal tie to.
You know, some of those early paintings of Joseph.
Precious. You are precious to Jesus and our Heavenly Father.
Yes.
Yeah,
Precious,
but some of those early paintings of Joseph, he looked pretty fabulous. You know, like if somebody tried to convince me Joseph Smith was gay, with those things coming out of his shirt sleeves and that, you know, little frock underneath the neck and the whooshed hair door, I could believe it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, you and Taylor Petrie can talk about that, because if you carefully edit some quotes. There's a quote that Taylor edited. No, it was Mike Quinn who did this. Taylor may have repeated it, but it's Mike Quinn who started it and said, "It is pleasing to lie down with our brothers and sisters and arise." I'm paraphrasing it, but it's something like, "It's pleasing to lie down with your brother in a loving embrace and wake up on the morning and greet one another with sweet caresses and kisses." It's something like that. Well, you edit out the fact he's talking about death and resurrection. And again, the joy of the reunions that will happen as we sadly die, and then as we become resurrected. But he edited that out, so he was able to give you some grist for your.
So it wasn't just
selectively edited.
Oh, that's funny. So it wasn't just a Chuck Tingle rewrite or anything like that. That's funny. So last question here then is. I know you got to go, so this is just kind of like, this can be our outro. What would your suggestions be? And maybe Timber's better at answering this. Maybe you're better at answering this. But we got to combat this somehow, okay? And that narrative out there needs to be smashed.
It sounds like that anti-Mormon narrative is perpetuating this problem, making it worse. Not only is it false, but it's very harmful.
Well, what's the first step of being the antithesis of somebody that, thwarts belongingness and creates perceived burdenness and so on and so forth? Because they're always saying, "Oh, I'm anti-Mormon because I'm trying to stop youth suicides and I'm trying to help the people that you're trying to kill through your patriarchy and all this other crap, you know?" So forgetting them and just trying to actually be a good patriarch or a good bishop or a good priesthood holder or a good fellow child of God, right? What's the best thing that you would say the average Joe like me and Jonah should do if, one of the youth in your ward or one of your buddies comes out as gay, figures out they're gay or whatever? Because A, no one wants to feel like a project. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to be treating them like they're a project. And B, you want to do things right by your fellow children of God and your brothers that you love in your elders quorum, that you love in your priest quorum, that you love in your deacons quorum. What are some just good tips, tricks, advice you would give to your average layman listening to this that's like, I don't want to feel that way. I want to feel super loved. What should we do?
You want to take that, Timber, or I can?
I would just say practice agape love, charity. That's the easiest way to do it, because charity doesn't promote sinful behaviors, but it's also deeply compassionate, deeply empathetic.
So give them gift certificates, money, shower them with gifts.
So listen to their experience. Try to understand where they're coming from and meet them where they're at, but also affirm what the truth is. Trying to appeal to them by saying, "Oh, the church is just going to change eventually, so just hang on there, and eventually the doctrine is going to change, and you can get married to your partner later down the road." That's not doing anyone any favors. In fact, I think that's just as destructive. But we can be deeply loving, compassionate, empathetic to people without pushing an LGBT agenda.
Yes, I would agree with all of that. And remember, this is a ministry to the one. So coin a phrase, it gets better. If you keep your covenants, and if you can stay on the covenant path, this will get better. That's part of the reason why Timber and I are public, there's really no personal benefit to us. It's not like we get dates. We're happily married. It's not like we get money. We just get hate. So what we do is we want people to know, because I don't know about you, Timber, but when I was 14 or 15-year-olds, I thought I was the only one. Thought I was all alone. Mm-hmm. Yes, I knew gay people out in the world, but I wanted to be a good Latter-day Saint. What was the model? There are a lot of ways, not just 2 options or even 4 options. There's so many ways to joyfully integrate whatever your sexuality is into the gospel while keeping your covenants. There really are. Mm-hmm. It may not look like it at the time, and I get that. And so I'd say that to anybody, right? I get how you look like your choices are constrained between 2 paths. There's way more than that. And your path back to the Lord, back to the Savior, is going to be your own, but with your covenants, with faith, with your brothers and sisters who we need to. We all need, but especially, maybe not especially, but definitely including LGBT individuals, need that brotherhood, need that sisterhood, need that connection. I just sent you 2 more slides, Cardin, that were from the research from the same four option survey, but they broke out and ask people what helped you. And it's interesting, there's a split between those that are theologically conservative, which is definitely Timber and I. And Timber's seen this. We went through it a while ago. And people who are maybe more progressive, so those would be the ones like, oh, the church needs to change their doctrine, or the people that are secular altogether. And it's interesting, there's some commonalities, and then there's some things that the non-believers benefit from that we don't, and there's things we benefit from that they don't. So again, ministering to the one helps, but to recognize that we need to help, that they can help others who are having problems, to learn to accept both their sexuality and their internal experience of sexuality, with also accepting their religion, so doing both of those, learning to surrender a higher power, maybe limiting your sexual acting out if you can, right? Masturbation, fantasy, porn use, those things are if they can limit those help. But also addressing shame, finding ways to be your own masculine person, right? Like Super Bowl party or an Oscars party, I don't know, whatever it is. Learning to be assertive, addressing maybe underlying mental health issues like depression and anxiety, being able to accept yourself non-judgmentally, identify what your authentic needs are. So all of these are things that can be universally helpful to those if people want specific ideas for how to help.
Okay. Now, do you have time to go over these last 2 slides before you go? What the research says? Go ahead
and throw them up, and I'll show you what I'm talking about.
Okay,
here.
So I've got what the research says. Really fast, dive into that one. What the research says.
Again, this is from the 4 option survey. So the first, this is really just, I fit it on 2 pages, but it's one table. Okay. And so what they did is in the theological conservative is the first column, and you see a lot of green lines on there. Okay. And then theological non-conservative, so that'd be more progressive or liberal. And you see non-theological. And then I've color-coded them to be green, blue, which is kind of neutral. Green's obviously, unambiguously helpful. Blue is probably helpful. Yellow is, could go either way. And red is, don't do it. Okay. So what we can see is, you can see there's some green across all 3 columns that are helpful for everybody. And you see that's things like identify authentic needs, accept non-judgmental, reduce depression, anxiety, learning to be assertive, learn to connect with others, expressing yourself and don't holding it in. It's interesting. It's a little more ambivalent, but there's also wide standard deviation. So I think that's still good from your own way of being manly and masculine, right? There's not just one way to be manly or masculine. In the case of men, sorry, I'm a little biased. It would be the same thing if you're a woman with same-sex attraction and your femininity.
I identify with that. Like, people think that I'm some kind of like fantasy football playing total jock just because I played sports in high school. But I hate it when in the first 15 minutes of Elders Quorum, all they do is talk football and basketball and NBA stuff. Like, I think watching sports is one of the most emasculating, stupid things that you can do. I would rather just take those 15 minutes and go play the sport in Central Park with other people that are out of shape like me and at least get some exercise out of it. There is nothing more just just like worse than video games than watching other athletic men go be athletic, I would rather go play the sport. So you want to talk movies with me? Oh, dude, I'll talk 1930s, 1940s cinema with you all day long and compare quotes from different movies. But sports, you lose me with the sports. So I feel you when you say that, like, oh, there's more than one way to masculine, you know?
Yeah. So invite your gay or lesbian ward members out to those sports activities or out to the movies or whatever. Being included and learning how to include in being one of the guys or being one of the gals can be so helpful. And I'll just highlight one that was huge for me. See the one that's reframing attractions. It's towards the bottom.
Okay.
What's interesting about this one is it was unambiguously helpful to those of us that are like orthodox and theologically conservative, less so for the non-conservative. It's still probably helpful and questionable for the non-theological, but this is something that Timber and I talk about a lot, right? So I have an attraction to men. Now, a lot of times that manifests platonically, right? I just want to be with the guys. And in fact, that's true of a lot of straight guys too. Why do they have sports bars? Why do they have bowling leagues? Why do they have all these things for men to do that others don't have, that we want to do? And so, is that wrong? Is that bad to enjoy the company of men in a social and platonic way?
No, that's the brotherhood, bro. That's the cool part, man.
Yeah. And so that was huge for me to recognize there was a lot. Sometimes we say, oh, it's okay to have same-sex attraction, just don't act on it. I would go further and say, you can even act on it in a lot of ways. Go be a super enthusiastic, 110% ministering brother, right? Do that and just be the fellowshipper and your elder quorum president. Act on that love and brotherhood you want to build and that you love and do. That's going to bless everybody. That's not
hold on. Let me jump in here real quick. That's something we need to reframe our language around, because I think we think same-sex attraction, we think the sexual side. Yes. Same-sex attraction could be an emotional, intellectual, non-sexual physical attraction to someone, and all of those things are beautiful to explore and to enrich with our same gender peers. It's the sexual part that we're trying to avoid, right? So all those platonic intimacies we should be able to enjoy, and that's what we're craving, and that's something we really need to feel supported. If you're a straight member of the church who's looking to support LGBT members of the church, we need connection. We need intimacy, real intimacy, not just shallow handshakes and pats on the back at church. Wow. Sorry, that doesn't really do much.
It sounds like the devil, I'm 40 and slip.
Dude, you're a savage today, man.
It sounds like the devil thrives in reductionism. Just reduce it down. Yeah. Reduce it down to just endorphins. You know, it's just a hormone. You know, in your brain, right?
And it's distorted. Yeah, like people and relationships are multifaceted, and they're complicated, and they're messy, and they're beautiful. And when they reduce it down to, and I think this is why a lot of anti-Mormon narrative gets so much traction, is because it's just so easy. It's so bumper sticker to say, oh, it's harmful. And the rebuttal that you're offering here, Jeff, is beautiful, and it's true, and it's better, but it's not as easy to just bumper stickerify. You know what I mean? Yeah, and I read the scriptures, and I think that's what the Lord wants from our quorums and our relief societies. There was a friend of mine who was on the activist side, and he said, people are getting thrown out of BYU for who they love. I am pretty sure nobody was thrown out of BYU for loving too much. They were maybe thrown out for having sex, though I happen to know they bend over backwards to even prevent that if they can. This is where we equate love with sex, right? But there is so much. We should be loving more, right? That's encouraged. We want people to love people 10 times more at BYU than anywhere else.
This is amazing. This is amazing. This is like, you could do 10 podcasts on this. You're shooting down, stupid, oversimplified anti-LDS and anti-gay tropes, just boom, boom, with a machine gun. And it's almost, I can't even keep track of how many things you've debunked. in this short episode. This is awesome.
Yeah.
What an amazing gift you have.
So before we go, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that want to be able to reach out, talk, get to know more. I'm going to do my best to post all the links that you've given me. And I don't know how I'm going to necessarily get the graphs up, but I guess they can just screenshot them. I'm going to try and put as much information that you've given me to my audience in the description of this video that I can. If people want to talk to you, man, if they want to reach out to you or Timber, where could people find you, man? Timber, you go first, and then Jeff, you go second.
Contact me at beaconssa@gmail.com or go to my website, beaconSSAministry.org.
Okay, cool. And Jeff, man, where can people find you?
You can find me on the North Star website, but my email address is jeff.bennion@northstarsaints.org. Yeah.
All right. That's awesome. Okay. Well, unfortunately, I'd love to talk to you guys all day, but I know you got to go somewhere. You got to be a responsible adult. And we don't want to keep you here any longer. So as always, guys, this has been real and it has been fun. Thank you guys so much for showing up. For this and more, please check us out at wardradio.com.
I ain't tryna bring you down, but for real, you might as well give up now. Think you got a chance, but I don't see how. Got a real tight grip when I hold that crown. My life been good and bad and all around. The more things I lost, the more I found. One thing I taught myself to do, no matter the problem, refuse to lose. So, how you want it, man? You can choose. If you can't take the heat, don't light the fuse. See, I walk in slow and ignite the room. Like fire, everything I touch, I consume. I'm getting up while y'all just snooze. While you make breakfast, man, I'm on the move. I'm the first one in and the last one out. Whoever owns the place gotta drag me out. In me I trust, yeah, I smell like success. This Elon Musk, huh? Everybody wanna be like us. We don't stop, cause the top just ain't enough.